Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this special meeting of council for September 18th, 2024. Being held at the Hillsborough Kiwanis Community Center. So I will call this meeting to order. The agenda for this special meeting of council for September 18th was circulated in advance. I would request the addition of conflicts of interest declarations to the agenda as it was omitted. And if there's no objections, I'll accept the motion to adopt the agenda as amended. So moved by Councillor Elderkin, so seconder on that motion, seconded by Councillor Jonah. Any discussion? Not, all in favor, signify by stating aye. Opposed, if any, the motion's carried. So are there any conflict of interest to declare in relation to this evening's agenda? There being none, we'll move on. So before we start, a couple of points to make, and I'll talk a little bit about the UMNB priorities, because that's what we're here to have the candidates speak to us about. So first of all, I'd like to welcome the representatives of both political parties who are here to present to council this evening, and members of the public who are here to listen to what's being said. We are going to record the meeting and it will be shared on our Fundy Albert website for all to hear. And the reason why we're using microphones is we tend to have a little bit of difficulty with our recordings. So if we all speak into the microphones, it'll make it much more, much better for the people listening after the fact. So I would add, so I've talked about that. I would like to thank the representatives of the political parties that are offering for office in this upcoming provincial election. Your dedication to your community and to the province are much appreciated. The purpose of the meeting, as I mentioned, is to hear from the candidates offering for the riding of Albert Riverview, specifically on the Union of Municipalities of New Brunswick priorities. Our presenters this evening have been asked to present on these very specific priorities. If anyone present this evening or watching this video later wishes to ask other questions of the candidates, I would encourage them to contact the candidates directly. There'll be an opportunity after this meeting is over to meet with the candidates and ask your questions. But for this particular meeting, it's about the UMNB priorities, and there'll be opportunities for council to ask clarifying questions after the fact. So I will go over the Union Municipalities of New Brunswick priorities, which the Village of Fundy Albert endorsed. They are a new partnership, and the priority is to create a stronger and more unified provincial municipal partnership that meets collective growth objectives, empowers municipalities, and achieves the goal of municipal reform to build strong and vibrant communities. Next is a new fiscal framework to complete the work of municipal reform in New Brunswick by fulfilling the commitment to a new fiscal framework. Third is progress on housing and infrastructure. And there are two priorities there, which are to collaborate with municipalities to address housing affordability, building the right kind of housing supply to support population growth, and taking action on shared goals to end chronic homelessness. Then there's establish a distinct urban housing strategy for New Brunswick's largest urban centers that partners with city governments to support growth with affordable housing targets and adequately addresses challenges related to homelessness. While this may not appear to be relevant for Fundy Albert, it is one that concerns us all in New Brunswick. And lastly, a new model for police services. And the priority there is to conduct a comprehensive provincial policing review in consultation with municipalities with a fair funding model to ensure appropriate community presence and visibility. So those are the topics that we are asking the candidates to present this evening. It's important to highlight that while members of council are residents and that they may have some party affiliation of some kind, when we interact as an elected form of government, we must remain politically neutral. There are to be no questions or comments of a partisan or campaigning nature by members of council. I will ensure this does not happen. There will be an opportunity for members of council to ask questions of the candidates of a clarifying nature based on the information contained in their presentations. So without further ado, we'll now hear from our political party candidates. Our first presenter this evening is the Progressive Conservative Party candidate, Minister Sherry Wilson. Minister Wilson, I would ask that you come up to the podium to do your presentation. And as much as possible, please speak into the microphone so we can make sure that we capture it. Thank you.
Well, I'm not going to wait and worship and remind to get closer again. Certainly, I want to say how happy I am to be here tonight. And your worship and your council for inviting us here. Let's see. Okay, thank you very much. And I certainly want to acknowledge Mr. Bethel for the Liberal Party and inviting to. Anyway, I want to talk a little bit about municipal reform tonight because this has been an important part and we recognize that local government's reform was a huge undertaking. We took this on and to begin, I guess, as I should, I want to say that the John P. King report, it was a committee, I was on the committee as a council in 2006. And it was a huge document. So we reviewed that and we looked at it and asked ourselves, how is this going to impact our own community? So having said that, with this report, this is something the municipalities have asked for. And because of the complexity part of it, this work was canceled recently for a second sober level to meet the needs of the communities. Time was lost bringing people into the process. The Department of Finance, Service to Brunswick, and the assessment office, local government does not own the assessment act. So they all went to the local Department of Local Government. This group has looked outside of the Brunswick also for best practices. This is a lengthy process. It's that they have to be collected from municipalities to see who is actually providing core services. Some are not all the same. Some are providing services that others are not. So this process will be complete by 2025 for 2026 the implementation phase. Having said that, I'm trying to be optimistic that they perhaps this could get done because really they're working closely with the union municipalities, and there are representatives from union municipalities in the AFL on the francophone side. And this process will rebalance between municipalities and provincial government because there is only one taxpayer. So having said that, we're optimistic that this may get done this fall. If it is done this fall, then we could actually move forward if we're reelected to bring the House back. The Premier has said he would implement this and put this bill through the legislature. So the provincial government and the municipalities are responsible to deliver services, finding new resources of revenue for municipalities. And finally, as previously mentioned, this is a huge undertaking that had to be done because 30% of rural New Brunswick has had no representation. When we continue these together while allowing them their own identity, it's no easy task, as I'm sure you found out. And this comprehensive review will benefit residents when all the work is done and working together to achieve that unity. We are confident that this work will get done and it will be done right. And it's better to take your time and make sure this is going to be a fair process for all municipalities. And having said that, we recognize that all across Canada, it is a huge challenge right now with infrastructure. We know and heard what happened in Calgary, what's happened in Montreal most recently, and infrastructure is a challenge. And we recognize that something has to change to help municipalities, and certainly I'm very well with the recent report, the theme, I believe, from UND. And I didn't get a chance to read it through, but when you get $200 million that municipalities will need to upgrade infrastructure, and I look at provincially, just some of the bridges, some of the work that has to be done, and it's so expensive to get that work done. So what's important and what I can promise you the final MLA is to work closely with the municipalities to make sure that we can identify projects and get the work done first. So we can get a start on this process. Surely, I believe that down the road, this is going to be a very worthwhile process. It's difficult now. It's a big undertaking, but we will get it done. So I want to talk a little bit tonight. We talked about the one and the work, so that's basically where we're at with that. But to collaborate with municipalities and to address housing affordability, building the right kind of housing supply, that was crucial. Great memo with regards to housing. We have a housing minister, something that we never had before. Recognizing this is not homeless people. I want to talk about the homelessness and the fact that some people are finding difficulty in housing right now. So how do we work together to address that? Because if you're looking at someone that's on a fixed income and all at once, you know, they can't afford the taxes, they can't afford to move forward, they're finding themselves stretched financially. That's not the way to go either. So it's how do we look at that? Having said that, I will say that with seniors, we've done a lot of work with seniors to help them to remain in their own homes, not just because of health, but because of finances as well. So we've increased the benefit. We've actually, I want to talk a little bit about the nursing home. It used to be 60% that the household had to pay if someone the spouse had to go to a nursing home. We've changed that to 40. So the government pays 60%. We recognize that a lot of people are struggling right now. We hear it all the time. We're listening to people. So having said that, we put the $300 benefit out there. And anyway, there's just so much that we're doing. It's hard to, I know we have a certain amount of time and I want to be respectful of that. So I'm going to talk about housing strategy. So there's $500 million over 3 years. The New Brunswick Housing Corporation is reestablished. There's 6,000 new housing starts per year. We're creating the market conditions to hold annual rent increases at an average of 2.5% and the annual percentage change in an average home prices to 4.8%. We've increased the housing budget by 23%. There's $10 million to support rural workforce housing. That is 220 new units. So $100 million over the next 3 years to build 380 new public housing. So we're going to have 230 affordable housing by spring because government for the last 40 years has not invested in MB housing. And when I became an MLA in 2010, that was the first thing that really shocked me. We had over 2,000 people on a waiting list to get MB housing because they could not afford to pay their rent. And that was 2010. So things have changed a little bit, but not a lot. That's why we've really set out to really address the housing crisis. And with 100,000 new people in the province, it's really added to that. So anyway, and then people buying, leaving another province and coming here and paying any amount for a home, it's really increased the fair market value for our houses too. So that's why the tax increase, because that plays a big role in the equation when they're doing the tax assessment. So we are helping the homeless. There's $60 million to better support permanent and energy shelters, emergency shelters and provincial outreach teams. We're working with the 3 major cities to establish 24/7 hubs. So we're investing in supportive housing options like the 12 Neighbors community. They've started one in St. John with this proposition, like if they apply to government for every affordable housing unit, government will offer them $70,000 per unit. So nearly 170 million worth of building permits were issued in November. So we're getting there. We're not there yet. We've still got a lot of work to do. And actually that's why I'm running again, because I feel we need to complete what we've already started. Because it's very unfortunate that a lot of the good work that we have done, you would never read about it in the newspaper. So that's just the way it is. But I want to talk a little bit about seniors because this is important. We've actually expanded the extramural care program because we want our seniors to be in their homes where they want to be. And we've done that because they're happier there. We're trying to take the backlog also out of the hospital because there's a lot of seniors waiting for nursing homes. So they're in, not just with doctors, not just with nurses, we need home care workers. We need a lot of people in the province. So we're actively recruiting for all healthcare workers and people need to know that. We've also started we've got 22 now nursing homes without walls, which simply means seniors can stay in their home and actually get services from the nursing home if they require them. So there's another few things there, but I am going to go back to health because with our accomplishments in health, we've really done a lot. Like I said, recruiting health professionals is still a top priority and we've done a lot. So we have a clear vision now. We're moving forward with an ever-increasing speed to build a stronger health system for all New Brunswick. Because over the past 5 years, we've been working hard to address these concerns. We've invested in people, technologies, and innovative programs to deliver patient-centered healthcare services where New Brunswick need it most. And I will say through Service New Brunswick, and I had the privilege of being the Minister for Service New Brunswick for a couple of years, and the work they do there in the IT department is just incredible. So that's why we were able to develop the Health Link. We were able to develop the e-visit. And there's a lot of programs and a lot of things out there that we can help with. And we had a seniors forum here a little while ago. And if anyone who really, if they can just remember the number 211 and they call that number, whether you need somebody to help you in your home, whether you need mental health services, whether you need maybe just somebody just because you're lonely and you want somebody to come play Scrabble with you or put a puzzle together. That's all free of charge. If you call 211, they'll direct you to whatever need you have, whether it's a health issue or a senior issue. So that's good information to know. But anyway, I do want to say this. We took on government in 2018. We were trying to decide what schools are we going to have to close. There wasn't enough people in. We looked at the budget and we were about to go over the cliff. We said, we got to be fiscally responsible. We've got to fix this. So we've all buckled down. And when I looked at the numbers and the people that were retiring in the next 5 years, it was shocking. That was a third of our health professionals. So we started back then recruiting. So in 2018, we had a flood. And then we had COVID. So a lot of more people retired. But you know what? I can stand here tonight and tell you all, I'm really proud of the work that we've done as a government because we managed through all that. We now can put another $1 billion in the healthcare budget. We've been doing that for the last 3 or 4 years. I could be wrong on that, but I think it's 4. And we've got the largest healthcare budget ever. It's $3.9 billion. And we are building schools and we just can't build them fast enough. So with 100,000 new people in the province, it's created its challenges. But what I'll tell you is that it's been good for revenue. And that's why I'm proud that we have balanced budgets and we have surpluses. But it makes it very difficult to budget when you don't know what you're going to have for revenue. So I'm going to go and talk a little bit about what I've been doing as a minister for mental health and addictions, because it will tie in, Your Worship, with the fact that policing is a challenge. So we've invested in a number of things. Most recently, we put an RFP out for a recovery center, which we promised some time ago, because that's what we need. We need this for people that are on the street, that don't have a place to go. And we know that about 80% of them are suffering from mental health issues. So we don't just need detox, we need a recovery center and then sober living, where they can go and learn to live a different life And it can't be just for a few months. It may be 18, it might be 24. But the need is there and we have to do this. It can't come soon enough. We kind of put a hold on that, as well as the Compassionate Care Intervention Act, for the simple reason we wanted to get this right. The media would have it that we were going to drag people off the street screaming. That's not what it was. My counterpart, Dan Williams in Alberta, he said it best. He said, it's not Canadian to leave somebody on the street and just step over them. Some of these people are in a condition where they can't vouch for themselves. And when they become a danger to themselves or other people, we need to act. And we shouldn't be depending on the police every time. That takes them away from their other jobs that they can be doing. We've seen an increase in crime for that very reason. And I've heard some pretty shattering stories of things that have happened. So the Compassionate Care Intervention Act, we're going to reintroduce that this fall if elected. And also, we're going to have a recovery center to address some of those needs. And I do believe it'll take a lot of the pressure off the police. But at the same time, I recognize too, because I worked with the police in victim services for almost 10 years in the 90s. And we had our own police service there in Riverview. And we were quite happy with it. We had no crime in Riverview at the time. And then I sat on the police board as a counselor for the town of Riverview. And I saw the increase in costs. At that time, it was 1999, when we lost our police service to have Kodiak, which amalgamated with the other two communities, which wasn't a bad thing. And it would probably be about the same cost, because I had many discussions with our CAO. And he said it would probably cost about the same amount of money. But when you see the increase in what it costs just for salaries, it's unbelievable. And I just think that we've got to take a long, sober look at this. How are we going to address it? And I'm not a person to make a lot of promises. I'm a person of action and listening to people to see what their needs are. And it's never been more important to work with municipalities and the people that you serve, because we are just servants of the people, to really coordinate what we're going to do, what your priorities are, and what your people's priorities are. Because working as a counselor, I'm well aware, you're close to the people that you serve. And that makes it a wonderful job, because sometimes it can be challenging because you don't always agree with people. People don't always agree with you. But if we can learn to be respectful and work together, that's how you really achieve the goals that you want to achieve, to serve people the way they want to be served. So having said, I don't know what I've got for time.
3 minutes.
Okay. I figured you'd be using your gavel there pretty soon, but anyway. But I want to say that if we are reelected, we want to continue to work not just with the municipalities to address their needs and the infrastructure challenges that we have, because we know it's all failing right across the province. Right now, we know that they put bridges in and all about the same time. So basically they're all failing at the same time. And I get complaints because some people have a 1-lane bridge. And I said, well, we got to look at the people that don't have a bridge, that theirs is closed because it needs work. And we know about the one, I'm sure, in Midway. So I've been down looking at that. We're waiting for the consultant's report right now. And we have to get that done before winter because of the road condition. But working together, addressing the needs of the communities, we can build New Brunswick back to where it needs to be and where it should be. Because you know what? We live in a beautiful province. It's an expensive province compared to other provinces because we have so many more bridges, more roadways. But you know what? That's what makes New Brunswick so beautiful, because we have so many nice waterways that other provinces don't have. Anyway, having said all that, I don't want to abuse my time allotted. So thank you for the opportunity. And certainly if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much, Minister Wilson. I'm now going to turn the opportunity over to councillors to ask questions of your presentation. So if there's a councillor who wishes to ask a question of Minister Wilson, please identify yourself and I'll bring the microphone over. Councillor Ward Russell.
Thank you. I know that you talked a little bit about affordable housing, and I think that's a really strong topic, especially for Fundy Albert. I know that I represent residents in Ward 6, and we seem to be doing all right. There is lots of housing continuing going on, but how do we continue to grow the other wards, the other parts of Fundy Albert with increased tax base, which would be bringing some more affordable housing?
Well, I know in different areas, like when we talk about affordable housing, like I've got a list here of what we're doing. And where some of the housing has already been started. But what you would need to do, if you have a developer that's interested in developing, is to apply for that, if it's affordable housing you're looking for, you would apply to government for the funding to do that. We're not going to have a rent cap because developers have basically just told us plain and simple that if that were the case, then there would be, they would not develop. So we're looking at different angles to make them cooperate and not raise the rents the way they have been, because we know that's a problem. So I know that there was, just most recently, there was 10 units in Evanston that we opened. We've been doing housing all across the province. But the thing of it is, we need to do a lot more. We know that. And what's really fearful is that just recently the federal government has told us that they're going to be bringing in, I'm going to find that list and give it to you. Yeah, right here. Anyway. Okay, yeah, so we've got, there's 60 units in Fredericton, 8 in McKees and Moncton, 24 in Queen Street in Moncton. There's going to be 20 units in Danier and Bathurst, 8 units in Moncton, Norwood. There's 8 units. 2 units. There's McLaughlin Drive, Edmondson, Miramichi. There's several projects on the go already in Moncton. We've done a lot of work with Rising Tides too. But if you're talking just in general rural areas, I think it's crucial that we find developers who want to build there. And like, I look at some of the beautiful old homes here because I always traveled down here when I was a kid. And I look at some of those homes and the fact that some people could be needing to another place, or, you know, there's all kinds of things that could happen to really bring them back to what their original glory was.
Thank you very much. Any other councillors? Yeah, Councillor Elderkin.
Just on healthcare, and as we talk about housing, and as you mentioned, healthcare as well, the facilities that we have in the rural areas, such as the Albert County Health and Wellness Center, do you foresee those ever being optimized more? Like, to be open evenings and weekends and staffing allowed? I think that would, you know, would that not help with the staffing issues at the?
Actually, absolutely, because, you know, that's what we're starting. Like, we have already, I think, 51 collaborative care units across the province. And we want to make sure that they have all the services required. Like whether it's somebody with mental health issues, whether it's somebody with, like if you say you call, you live on Main Street, Hillsborough, where's the nearest place I can go because my child just got maybe fell and needs a stitch maybe. Well, they can direct you where to go. And it would be a lot easier to go there to take the heat off the ERs. That's been the whole goal all along because our ERs are backed up. And then with the housing or with the retention issue and keeping people wanting to look after seniors and bringing them in from other countries, which we've been doing, that'll take them out of the hospital too, because they don't want to be in the hospital. It's not a good place to be. It needs to be for people that are really, more like if they need surgery, if they need, something like that. Yeah, or an accident, whatever.
Thank you. I believe Councillor Lamb has a question.
Yes, thank you. With the amalgamation, there's been a lot of change, of course, we all know it, and it's been a little rough, but it will work out in time. My question is, going forward, we've picked up some expenses that we never had before, such as Route 114. Poundville comes to mind, that the municipality has to pay for the repairs on Route 114 in municipality. We never had to do that before. So going forward, is there gonna be some kind of, money's coming to the municipalities for that, or we're gonna have to fund that on our own? Because the taxpayers are paying it at the end of the day. And that was always paid for the province before. That's concerning. Because the roads are what they are and they need a lot of repair.
Absolutely, and I hear that all the time, is that roads, and we know they need a lot of repair, but you know what? That's all part of that fiscal reform, is actually, what do you need, what infrastructure potential, infrastructure costs do you actually have? And how are we gonna work together to make sure that the money's going to be there to fix what we need to fix? I mean, it would be nice to say that we can do all the projects all at once, but we know that's not possible because there is only one taxpayer. But it's to make sure it's a fair process where our municipalities are going to thrive and the people in there, in the municipalities, are going to be happy with the services they're getting.
Councillor Jonan.
City of Moncton is, I want to go to homelessness. City of Moncton is presently, looking at debating closing the senior center, actually known as the hub, St. George Street for homeless. Presently, there's 8 to 10 people stay there permanently with health issues. In the winter, there is a home to 100 people. If they, and this looks like it's a political move to fall and to help support, to start taking a little more care of the homelessness in Moncton. If they close the hub before winter, my head, if they close before winter, are you guys aware of what's going on as far as on a provincial level, and what would you do with those people that will be on the streets? Right now, there's approximately 600 people on the streets in Moncton. So I'm just wondering if you're aware of it, and if there's any talk, any plans on what would you, the province do?
So you're telling me that there's talk of the facility on St. George Street, the senior citizen closing?
Yes. Yeah, there is going to be debated, it was put on the floor a few days ago, it's going to be debated over the next couple of weeks by the city, to close the hub.
Now, this, to be honest with you, this is the first I've heard of it, but this is, we can't do that. Like, we cannot turn people out in the cold. We've already lost people from tent fires. People have frozen.
Yeah.
And therein lies the Intervention Act and having a Compassionate Care Intervention Act and having a place to actually house people. We have rising tides in Moncton too that have done terrific work. Like, I think they've housed, the last number I think I got was around 142 people.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of good work being done, but we just can't seem to get it done fast enough. So recovery all has to be a part of that too. But no, I was not aware of that, and I'll certainly be checking this out and, finding out what is going on with that. But thank
I wouldn't
you.
mind staying in touch with you about that, it's quite,
Absolutely.
yeah, thank you, sir.
All right, does anyone else have a question? If not, I do have a couple of my own. One of the priorities is the completion of the work of the fiscal framework in New Brunswick by fulfilling a commitment to the new fiscal framework. And for residents of any community, the majority of the funding that we get for our general operating fund comes from the warrant that's developed and through property taxation. So that represents a large sum of that money. Now, I do know that the Union of Municipalities of New Brunswick has been pursuing the idea of providing some of the provincial sales tax monies from provincial sales tax to help offset some of those property tax pressures that the municipalities are facing. So is it does your party intend to pursue that along with, there was another one as well, which is a portion of the sin taxes, which are the sale of cannabis sales and probably alcohol and tobacco as well. Is that something that your party is pursuing?
Well, what I'll say to that is that from what I understand and what I know, with the negotiations with the municipalities and the francophone side, that all options are on the table. Because we recognize that the majority of municipal funding is just going for operation. And we can't, you can't afford to do anything else, that all your money is going for that one purpose. So having said that, we know that municipalities all need more money. So how that's gonna roll out, it'll be debated between the municipalities and certainly raise like 1% of the HST, the sin money, like that's all part of it. That's all part of the equation. So having said that, I know that you will receive more money because you need to, you have to, all municipalities do. But how it's going to be and where it come from, I can't say.
All right, thank you very much. So the second question I have is in relation to policing costs, and it's something that's near and dear to my heart. So policing costs represent 1/6 of the operational costs of the Fundy Albert operating budget. So it's 1/6, it's a significant amount. We feel, as do other members of the UMNB, that a policing review is necessary. Is your party committed to conducting a provincial policing review as was identified in the priorities document?
We know that has been asked for, but we have to look at where we're going with the police review too. And again, I will say, if municipalities are not happy with their current service, then we need to know that. That has to be negotiated. And the whole purpose of local governance reform was to give municipalities more autonomy. So you can make decisions and do what you and your people that you serve want done. So that could be all part of it. It's not something that I would close the door on for sure.
All right, thank you very much. So unless there are any other questions, I will thank you. And the questions that I've asked, I'm going to ask of the other candidate as well. So those are questions that are included in the document or that are important for municipalities. So thank you very much, Minister Wilson, for the opportunity to come in here tonight and present and answer questions. We truly appreciate your presence in this evening.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here and thank you for having me. I felt like because I had so much I wanted to go through that I was all on the map there for a bit, but anyway, I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. So next, I will invite Mr. Dave Guthrow, who is the Liberal candidate representing the riding of Albert Riverview. So Mr. Guthrow, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council, and thank you to my counterpart, the Honorable Minister Wilson. So I will recognize Minister Wilson and decades of experience and a proud career, particularly championing for women in politics, and I am honored to speak alongside of her tonight. Just a bit of an introduction on myself. So I don't have a political background. I'm not used to or accustomed to situations like this. I am an operations manager, so I deal with supply chain and logistics. I run a distribution center. My engagement in the community has been growing over the years, starting with charitable work. I'm very much involved in charitable work. It's something I believe in quite deeply. I'm the Vice President of Urban Rural Rides. I'm a director for the Salisbury Lions Club. I chair the PSSC or the PTA for the Salisbury High School. I'm a director for the Volunteer Center of Southeastern New Brunswick. And I'm a director for the CNIB in New Brunswick as well. And all of those charities have relevance to me and my family, and that's what got me involved. But one thing that happens when you get involved with charities is it just keeps growing. You keep seeing more need and more demand and more places that you can serve. And that ultimately did lead me into fostering and being involved with the Foster Association of New Brunswick and ultimately adopting my son, which got me involved with the school. Before that, we were days, double income, no kids. I was just oblivious to the world around me. But as soon as you're adopting a child, you find yourself interacting with social services, child protective services, the courts, mental health, general health, the schools, all that kind of thing, all those kind of things. And you start seeing what I would perceive as deficiencies in almost every institution that I was starting to interact with. And that sort of naturally got me more and more involved in politics. When I run my business, my distribution centers are a kilometer in size. And if I spend my day in the office, that becomes a very bad day for me. Lots of things go wrong. I prefer to follow practice of Canva walking, which is being in my business, being in the field, interacting with my staff, and overcoming obstacles as they arise. I very much believe in that. My staff have the answers to almost every problem I'm looking for as long as I speak to them and I engage them. And that's one of the things that drove me in particular to Susan Hall. She had known me in the past for community involvement, but she came to talk to me. And as I got to know her, she was very much allowing me independent thought, allowing me to advocate for my community's specific needs and unique needs, and that drew me to her. I really like that I can speak my mind, that we don't have a centralized authority, that she's very much in decentralization. And she's very much committed to working with our partners on the municipal level. And myself and my other candidates that I've interacted with, I recognize I'm from Salisbury, and our community town council is very active. It's a town council I'm very proud of. They're doing amazing things on a daily basis. And they're building vibrant, sustainable, and safe communities. And I'm excited to work directly with those people. And there's these folks here tonight and in Riverview, they're my friends, they're my neighbors. And they're doing wonderful things. And I think the provincial government really needs to partner with them to move that forward. Now, as I said, this isn't really my normal forte, so I'm going to go into my literature here, so it'll become less entertaining as we move through, but I do want to cover the talking points. So the first question, create a stronger and more unified provincial municipal partnership that meets collective growth objectives, empowers municipalities, and achieves the goal of municipal reform to build strong and vibrant communities. So Sherry acknowledged, I acknowledge, municipalities are the most responsive level of government. They're the government that interacts with our citizens the most. And what I'm seeing in Salisbury is they're really actually the most value adds in our community and enriching our community. And that's something that we need to foster and help to continue to develop. We've seen widespread growth and change in the last 2 years, and that is not going to stop. That's going to continue. And the province needs to provide a partner with our communities to make sure that they're set up for success related to their own unique and individual challenges. We believe that we need to decentralize in our approach with our partnership to the municipalities. We believe that we need to empower our communities to champion their own unique priorities, because like my employees in the field, they know what they need more than I might know in Fredericton. We need to listen to our communities and empower them. Our whole government is committed to working alongside our municipal teammates, and we are committed to supporting our communities as well as municipal fiscal reform. I'll move on to question 2, which is complete the work of municipal reform in Brunswick by fulfilling the commitment to the new fiscal framework. So a whole government is committed to a fair and comprehensive municipal fiscal reform. And this will be kicked off immediately when we form government and move through 2025. We are committed to a reform of the New Brunswick property tax system to ensure transparency and predictability, which will not only be predictable to the end user, the citizens, but also the municipalities and predicting their cash flow. This is particularly important considering the added responsibilities facing our communities, and we're hearing that from every community. Growing lists of responsibilities and financial obligation. We support an equitable system that supports municipalities without giving New Brunswick homeowners unwanted surprises that they see every tax season. And I know I'm a taxpayer and a property taxpayer, so I've seen that the last couple of years. We plan on these actions for property tax reform in 2026. Moving on to the union's question number 3. Collaborate with municipalities to address housing affordability, building the right kind of housing supply, and support population growth and acting on shared goals to end chronic homelessness. So the first topic would be affordability. The Holt government will temporarily remove the provincial sales tax on multi-unit construction. We've seen our sister provinces in PEI in Nova Scotia do this to encourage high-density development. And I can attest to not being too much aware of this program several months ago and being on a weekend away in Halifax. And every time I took a turn around the corner, there was a high-rise going up. In 2 years, that city won't look like the city I spent much of my childhood in. It's going to look like a major metropolitan center. Nova Scotia and PEI are outpacing us in high-density development because of this relaxation on taxing. The whole government will reestablish a rent cap. We do believe that reducing taxations on high-density development will offset any downside to rent caps for developers, and we do want to help people who are in rented situations by not being faced with uncontrollable increases like we've seen. We are committed to removing the provincial tax on electrical bills, which will equal 10% savings on a monthly basis to all users. We're committed to removing the carbon tax at the pumps, which will save roughly 4 cents per liter. And we are committed to starting a provincial-wide breakfast and lunch school program, which is consistently executed in all schools, which we don't currently have. Some schools have them, some schools don't. They're operating with various levels of success. We want a consistent program, which is going to help hardworking families with the cost of food. The right housing, our government will support all municipalities by finding the right tools unique to their situation and working with community groups to bolster the development of more homes. We are committed to working with groups already grounded in a housing first strategy and approach and work with them to expand their current operations. Homelessness, the whole government will work with all municipalities to ensure they have access to the supports, expertise they will need to help with homelessness. This will include enhanced access to mental health services, tax reduction on new and affordable homes, and investment into mental health and social services to ensure we have the right amount of boots on the ground for the right jobs required. Number 4, establish a distinct urban housing strategy for New Brunswick's largest urban centers that partners with city governments to support growth and affordable housing targets and adequately addresses challenges related to homelessness. We understand that municipalities have different needs when it comes to housing. A whole government is committed to working with each community to ensure that they have access to the supports and expertise they need to help with this housing situation. This is not a cookie cutter solution. While there will be a master plan, we want to work with each municipal partner so that we can make a unique playbook that works for them in their particular region. Moving on to number 5, conduct a comprehensive provincial policing review in consultation with municipalities with a fair funding model to ensure appropriate community presence and visibility. So a whole government is committed to review the policing model as part of the second phase of the fiscal reform. We are committed to that. So 2 things, parties centrally have pollings that tell them what people want to talk about. Provincially, it's healthcare, education's up there, cost of living, obviously. When I'm doing door-to-door knocking, when I'm engaging with people, there's 2 things that's coming up in the top 3 most of the time. Infrastructure, we know that from Salisbury all the way to Elmo, we have infrastructure problems, so people want to talk about that regularly. But the other thing is safety, the feeling of being unsafe, and the feeling of wanting to see more police presence in our community. So in Salisbury, I live off Main Street. I've been burglarized 3 times in 2 years. Petty theft. So they're opening up my car, they're going into my garage. My neighbors have had that. My neighbors are working families and seniors. We did have a shooting event in Salisbury, unfortunately, just a couple of days ago, which there's not a lot of information to touch on, but residents are telling me that they're afraid to leave the doors unlocked in a town of 2,000 people. They're afraid to walk down Main Street in a town of 2,000 people. The town, much like the mayor here just specified, is paying a considerable portion of its revenue for policing services. And the police do respond. They did an amazing job with the shooting. You got a public notice out. They had the situation under control very quickly, but it's always reactive. There's never an active presence. It's not overly visible, and people aren't feeling that they're getting the service for the money that they're investing. I know the police have made gains, and they have made gains on the amount of officers patrolling, on the amount of people they've hired. So they are working on it, and they are making changes. But we do want to see that We do want to see that review to make sure that we're getting the right level of policing in the communities, particularly in our rural communities. We understand that we have to work to remove the workload on police officers. So as much as it might be unfair for residents who aren't seeing the proper amount of policing, it's also unfair for the officers who might not be staffed with enough counterparts to support them. We know that we need to invest in mental health and social services to help relieve the burden on those officers who are often dealing with mental health issues or domestic issues that another team of professionals would be able to alleviate from them, and they could open up those officers' time for actual policing. We wish to see an expansion of the mobile crisis units. So there are mobile crisis units that are particularly dealing with mental health crisis. They operate until 10 p.m. We want to see those crisis units expanded, and we also know that mental health doesn't go to bed at 10 o'clock at night. We want to see them run 24/7, so they can be alongside the officers in responding to mental health crisis with them 24 hours a day. And I would probably expect that mental health issue is probably greater overnight, but that's just a gut feeling. We recognize the need to increase mental health and addiction services overall, more spaces for long-term treatment beyond the 10-day detox to help our citizens truly get back on their feet. And we do wish to revisit the concept of mental health courts. And that concept is perhaps someone who is struggling with mental health crisis shouldn't go into the prison system. They should maybe go into a network of people and professionals that can help them deal with their particular crisis and make them rehabilitated to re-enter society and reduce the risk of repeat offense. So that's a long-term game. And then in summary, so we wish to expand the mobile crisis unit, make them 24 hours a day, expand our services overall, including long-term treatment options, and mental health courts, matching services, and reducing risk for reoffending. We are further committed to building 30 new community care clinics across the province, which will help to address the 180,000 New Brunswickers without a primary care physician. This will also reduce stress in emergency rooms and give more access to preventative mental health services and treating mental health crisis. We also understand the need to work on preventative measures, particularly with our youth, getting more psychologists in our schools and our school communities, and working with community mental health organizations who already work with youth and helping them grow and expand. Establishing a province-wide breakfast program and lunch program in support of our communities with infrastructure projects related to recreation and culture, we also recognize as incredibly valuable in this preventative measure. And just to touch on charities in terms of youth, there is a charity that's close to me. It's one of the ones that we've done a lot of fundraisers for. It's called Youth Impact in Moncton. And they ran the group homes that my son came from. And one of the things we learned in one of our tours is that at 16, a youth can say, I no longer have parental rights. I can do what I want. I can move out. I can not be forced home. But the shelters in Moncton, Youth Impact closes at 7. The shelters in Moncton won't take anyone under 13. So youth on the streets between the ages of 16 and 19 have nowhere to go. That would be an example of, we have Youth Impact. They are able to deal with the need, but if we invest in that community organization and expand it, we can close that gap and keep those kids off the streets overnight, which is going to slow down future problems and probably get them back on the right track, or at least contribute to that. So I know that I started off talking about myself freehand, and then I went into my script. So thank you for letting me get through that. I do want to once again thank council for giving me the time this evening to talk. The hard work that you do, I'm genuinely grateful, and I will turn it over for a question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Guthro. Are there any members of council who have any questions for our presenter? No? On this side of the table? Councilor Jonah.
Thank you for coming tonight. You remember I actually shared a little bit about the homeless shelter in Moncton. If your party was in power, how would you react to that? Or how would you like to see your party react to that? And closing of a shelter for 100 people, just with much of a regard plan.
So I did see reference to that yesterday on the news, and forgive me, I don't know intimate details of the entire situation. But if I was in power, what I would advocate for is to understand why it's closing. Is it a cash revenue problem? Is it a leasing problem? What is causing the closure? And I'd want to connect with my municipal partners, right? That's an example of where we need to work together. I can't be dictatorial from Fredericton. That's reaching out to Moncton. What's up? What's going on? What's the transition plan for the people that are in those homes that are going to very quickly need help? And how can we help you connect all those dots? That's how I'm here.
Anyone else? Yes, Councilor Russell?
Fans are coming with.
That's not really a question, but just more of a comment. We did talk about healthcare, which I greatly appreciate you touching on that, but I guess just my comment is Fundy Albert is open for business, and we hope that we would have your support and can bring in some more businesses to our area as well.
Thank you so much.
So, like the last presenter, I do have some questions. I think in some respects you touched on both of the aspects of the topics that I was going to ask a question on the fiscal framework policy. The one thing in particular that is of interest to the Union of Municipalities of New Brunswick are additional funding levers and possibly a percentage of the HST and or the possibility of sin taxes. That's something that your party would support.
Yes, so this is a topic I've been hearing a lot. Again, I'm friends with municipal members in Salisbury. So something I've been hearing a lot of is we've had all these changes, we've had all these new responsibilities. The money's still kind of the same. Where are we going to get more funds? We can't keep raising property taxes indefinitely. That's not a well we can keep going to. So the idea that we're going to find other ways to find cash flow, particularly with the HST, which is going to grow as consumerism grows. So that is not only a new cash flow source, but over the years, it's going to provide more cash. So I can tell you that we're very interested in finding more ways of cash flow for the municipalities. That's on the table for discussion. Industrial tax is on the table for discussion. So while I can't commit to anything, it is part of our discussion and we want to see more money get to the people who are using it properly.
Thank you. The second question was as relates to policing costs, and again, it's something that's near and dear to my heart. Spent a number of my career years in the police. And you touched on the openness of your party to have to conduct a policing review. The element that was seen to be missing is the importance is to involve municipalities. Would your party be involving municipalities in the conduct of that review?
So I'll go back to my first statement. I'm in business. I don't believe in omnichannel leadership. So it's not Fredericton that's telling us we have a policing problem. It's the municipalities. So there could be no reform without involving the people who are telling us there's a problem.
Thank you. So unless there are any other questions from members of council, I would like to thank you very much, Mr. Butor, for coming here this evening and presenting. And thank you for both political candidates for being here this evening. Your time is very much appreciated. I know you both have very busy schedules, and this is something that we have been asked to do by the Union of Municipalities of New Brunswick, and it's important to all municipalities in the province of New Brunswick. When we do adjourn, I would encourage anybody that's here who wishes to speak to either one of our political candidates to do so. There's coffee and tea to be enjoyed right after. So unless there's anything else or anything further, I would ask for a member of council to move for the adjournment of this meeting. So moved by Councillor Elderton. So the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much for your time, sir.